Right, let's go. Right, what is the most common features amongst child sex offenders that you come across?
I would say some of the justifications that they use to convince themselves that what they've done was right in some way, that the child wanted it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
What about age as well?
Does
that correlate or...?
I don't know about age, to be honest. Can you stop a minute?
Yeah,
my brain's just gone blank.
Alright, so just, what's the most common features and stuff?
The most common features in the sex offenders that I've worked with are the justifications that are used regarding convincing themselves that the child wanted what the outcome was, to be honest.
Did you feel any sympathy towards any particular offenders at all, and if so, why?
Not really, no. Only some of the people that I've worked with, though, because of the lives that they've led and some of the things that have happened to them, then you can empathise with that to some degree, but it can't justify what they do at all, so that's probably where it ends.
What's the general attitude of a sex offender, child sex offender? Do they feel any remorse, or do they feel victimised to some point, like you said before? Do they kind of make excuses?
It's particularly the ones that are viewing things online tend not to have any remorse for what they've done. And the people that I've worked with so far have had a lot of denial of responsibility for the offence anyway, so they couldn't possibly couldn't possibly admit to having any remorse for what they've done, because they may be minimising what they've done, or denying that they've actually done it as well. So you tend to get a lot of that.
Do you think it's possible for a child sex offender to actually reform completely, or do you think that there's something deep inside their mind that would stop them from actually being able to not resist temptations and stuff?
I think, based on my experience, I've never known of full reform, but the belief is that they can control the urges by engaging in certain programmes and learning certain strategies to stop them from progressing further on any of the impulses that they might have.
Is that the thing that you focus on most as a probation officer?
Yeah, so exploring all the strategies that they can use, the different steps that they would take, because there's always a lead up to an offence, and it's never ever just usually it's not just something that would happen just like that. It usually takes some planning, so it'd be about looking at those kinds of strategies, but not all of them will necessarily use the strategies.
Forgot about the age you are.
Yeah, that's not as important. That's not the same question. In the case of the, have you heard of the Ian Watkins trial and stuff?
The Lost Prophets.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. He seemed to be almost like boastful about the things he's done to children. Like, he's done a lot of bad stuff, and has anyone you ever come across that actually been like almost proud of the stuff they've done, or seems to think it's like cool?
I wouldn't necessarily say, because the people that I've worked with have been like, there's been a lot of denial around the offence, so I haven't really come across that. But I did have one guy that I actually thought that he was like that, and that he was being boastful and he was thinking that he was getting away with things, but and prosecuting us for doing all kinds of things and assessing him the way he was. But I think it was like a game to him. So I suppose in some ways there is a bit of that going on with some of the people that we work with. but not as overt as that I've come across yet anyway.
Do you feel like child sex offenders actually are opportunistic over like the offences they do, and have come across? Sorry. Alright, never mind. That's the lead-up question. I jumped again. Do you feel that child sex offenders are more opportunistic when it comes to the crimes they commit, or is it mostly premeditated?
I think that they create the opportunities more often than not. They will create a situation where they've got the opportunity to have access to children. For instance, they'll form relationships with vulnerable women with children, or they'll access jobs in certain areas as well where there's children, or they'll go to places where there are children. So it's very rarely that it's just an opportunistic. Obviously there will be some situations where there may be those kinds of opportunistic offending, but in my experience it's mostly premeditated.
Does opportunistic attacks indicate like more of a sinister side to the offender and less of a sick, twisted mind of someone who would like groom someone online and then try and meet up with them to try and have sex with them?
Would it indicate a more sick
mind?
Like
if someone was opportunistic on the street, would that be like?
I'd say that may probably make them a bit more dangerous because, I mean, they may actually be looking for an opportunity as well. So they may be out there looking for any opportunity that arrives. It wouldn't necessarily just be that it just happened. They were out there with a plan to do something, but they just didn't know. And I think that would make them a bit more risky, because you wouldn't know exactly how far they might take it. I think there was a case that we worked with that was a bit like that, and he was one of the most dangerous sex offenders in Liverpool, because it would involve like kidnap and things like that. So I'd say more dangerous and a lot more difficult to control when they're in the community.
Can we just hold a minute?
That's more or less everything. How's it? Ask about age.
Okay, you can ask about age. I'll be back in a minute. I'm just reading that